As soon as they have that news conference, we will take it immediately live. But for now, let's go right to Carter Evans, who is in Utah. Carter, what can you tell us? What have you heard?
Well, Gail, we are expecting this news conference to start any minute now. I'm watching off camera here to see when authorities start walking in. But here is what we know. CBS News has confirmed through multiple law enforcement sources that the name of the suspect is Tyler Robinson. He is 22 years old, so college age, just like authorities had said when they found that picture and first released that picture yesterday. We did get some clearer pictures yesterday that they had enhanced of this individual, and we're told that he confessed to his father. He lives in southern Utah, and that's where he confessed to his father and was apparently turned in to U.S. Marshals. That is the latest. As far as details about how this all went down, what he has said to authorities about what occurred, has he confessed to them, we're hoping to find that out when this news conference begins in just a few minutes. We do know that they had a tremendous amount of video of this individual. They were able to get that out to the public. They had 7,000 tips come in on the tip line that they were following up on. But in the end, it appears that this individual turned himself in with his father.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's turn now to senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang and Anna Schechter, who is CBS News senior coordinating producer for crime and public safety. Good morning, guys. You know, yesterday when they released a lot of information. We saw his picture, we saw his escape. And when I went to bed last night, I said, now it's only a matter of time, surely. When I woke up this morning, I said, now we're certainly going to have something. So I was surprised that it was taking so long since the picture was so clear. And I kept thinking, family members, somebody knows this guy. Somebody speak up, Weijia.
Well, you know, last night, Gail, we had a press conference from local authorities in Utah. The FBI director, Kash Patel, was standing with them. They released new images, but they did not say anything about coming close to having a suspect in custody. And it wasn't until this morning that President Trump, not law enforcement officials, but the president, broke the news that, as you mentioned, he said there was a high degree of certainty that the suspect was in custody. Multiple sources tell CBS News that the person they have has a strong resemblance to all those images that we have been seeing. And the president actually went on to reveal some of those details that we just heard from Carter. He said that it was a minister who was familiar with this person, who recognized him, and then this minister informed the U.S. Marshal's office, and somehow after that, the family became involved, and the father convinced his son, the shooter, to turn himself in. That's according to President Trump. But obviously, Gail, there are still so many questions. Yeah, yes. Because we haven't heard from police.
I would imagine everybody's Googling Tyler, because his name has been released. Everyone's Googling the name to find out what we can find out about this person.
That's right.
We see they're entering the room now. Anna, stand by for just a sec.
At today's press conference, we will hear from Governor Cox, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Sheriff Mike Smith. We also have with us Utah DPS Commissioner Bo Mason, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, FBI Special Agent in Charge Robert Bowles, and local and federal law enforcement partners. Following the remarks today, Governor Cox, Director Patel, and Commissioner Mason will take questions. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th. in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I will share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital O-W-O, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who has worked seamlessly together, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and our federal partners with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're grateful for everyone who worked together in such a short amount of time to find this person and to bring justice. I want to thank the public who has been so engaged, reviewing videos, helping us with sending in tips, and helping us get to this point. I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well. I especially want to thank the family of Charlie Kirk, Erica, Charlie's parents, his children. I want us to be thinking of them as we bring justice in this case. They will be involved in that justice. We will be working very closely with them as we move through this process as well. This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah. But I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history. With that, I will now turn the microphone over to the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Thank you, Governor. This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play, and we will play that role, and we will lead out for the federal government. But Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilized these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m., where at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast, and we're so transparent, and we're committed to that transparency. The crime scene, just a little bit there. It is a large crime scene. State and local authorities, along with federal authorities, processed that crime scene quickly. And I even had the ability to walk through that crime scene and walk through the steps the suspect took to learn more about what was needed and what resources we needed to bear to create a full picture for the FBI and leadership back in Washington. Furthermore, thankfully to state and local partners, forensic evidence has been seized and continues to be garnered. Forensic evidence has already been evaluated at FBI laboratories in Quantico and state and local authorities here. We will continue to process evidence as we see it, as we collect it, and we will continue to deliver to Governor Cox and his team. Last night, we had a total of approximately 7,000 leads. As of this morning, thanks to your great work, we have over 11,000 leads that were called in to the FBI, and we are running out every single lead that we can. Every one of those leads will be run out. The arrest is a testament to the dedication of good law enforcement being great and partnerships in law enforcement, which I've tried to highlight as my tenure as the director of the FBI. There is no better relationship for law enforcement than the FBI to partner with state and local authorities, and you've seen it here in these last few days. The FBI Salt Lake Field Office, along with our offices in LA, Phoenix, Denver, San Antonio, Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, our headquarters component in Quantico, all participate in the FBI. I want to express my deep gratitude to the employees of the FBI, the men and women, the evidence response team tacticians, the special operators, the agents, the support staff. You have done monumental work in historic time when the public, who had a right to demand such an expeditious solving of an investigation, the FBI answered that call diligently, critically important to our nation, and we delivered. And I'm proud to be their leader, and I'm proud to be the director of the FBI. This is very much an ongoing investigation, as the governor said, and we will continue to work with state and local authorities to develop the investigation, to provide them the evidence they need for their ongoing prosecutions, and we will be here to answer every call they absolutely have, as long as it takes, for as long as we need to find and apprehend whatever suspects were involved in this crime. Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
Thank you, and good morning. I would just like to take a few minutes as the sheriff to express my gratitude for everybody who has played a part in this investigation. As you know, it's been a vast, a complicated, and a very, very fast-paced investigation. You're looking at people standing up here who are running on, if they got an hour's sleep in the last couple of days, they're probably lucky. It has been very taxing. It has been so impressive, speaking on behalf of the local law enforcement, to see the cooperation that we've seen in this type of case. Across the state, sheriffs, chiefs, our state partners have stepped up and have come to the call on anything that we needed. Our county chiefs have been phenomenal. Our Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, who's standing up here with us, has been phenomenal in leading us through this investigation. I would like to thank the federal government for their resources, their assets. Our local team here, our FBI team, has been extraordinary in helping us work through this and bring this person to justice. Most of all, I would like to thank the public, and specifically, I would like to thank the public who turned to prayers and who turned to positiveness for us. I would like to thank them on behalf of the law enforcement community, because we needed those prayers. That's what we needed to get through this. We needed your support, and you gave it to us. We needed your patience, and you gave it to us. And I would like to thank you for the Kirk family, because that's what they need, is your support and your prayers, and that will get us through all of this. So thank you, everybody, for everybody that have stepped up. We've had such a phenomenal response to this. Thank you.
I also want to give a special thanks to the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. Their unwavering support and their commitment to justice is shown true here. And without AG Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and the resources they brought to bear, we would not have been able to complete our mission. And I just want to say special thanks. It's an honor to be a part of the Department of Justice.
Thank you again to our incredible law enforcement team who has worked so hard. Sheriff, I got a solid 90 minutes last night, so I'm probably the most well-rested person up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I get the microphone, so I hope you'll permit me a moment just to share a few more thoughts about where we are and how we got here, and maybe a little bit of where we go from here. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere. And every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Even, especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those. And specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state, and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youths. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. I want to thank my fellow Utahns. You know, this bad stuff happens. And for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us, that somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I had hoped for, just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. And it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes, because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency. And I desperately call on every American, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, conservative, MAGA, all of us to please, please, please follow what Charlie taught me. I'll just conclude with words I share often from a friend and author, Yuval Levin, who was asked if he was optimistic about our country. And he said, I'm not optimistic. He said, I hate optimism. Like, that sounds bad. But he said, optimism is a vice. It's this idea that good things are just going to happen. And he said, in the history of the world, good things have never just happened. He says, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful. And hope is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hope is the idea that good things are going to happen because we can make them so. I still believe in our country. And I know Charlie Kirk believed in our country. I still believe that there is more good among us than evil. And I still believe that we can change the course of history. I'm hopeful because Americans can make it so. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Governor, can you please speak to whether the suspect is speaking with authorities and his demeanor, Tyler Robinson?
I cannot speak to that. I cannot speak to that. Well, I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not, and by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. That's I think that speaks for itself. There's nothing more that we can share at this time.
Governor.
About the gun, do you anticipate any more arrests?
We do not at this time have any information that would lead to any additional arrests. Yes. But
Governor.
The investigation is ongoing.
Governor.
Yes. So right now, Mr. Robinson has been booked into the Utah County Jail. You heard the president this morning report that he was taken into custody, that his family and a friend helped to deliver him into custody of law enforcement in Washington County. For those of you that don't know where Washington County is, it is the southwesternmost part of the state of Utah. It's about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive from here, where we are right now, and that's where he lived and where they turned him in. Please, I'll go here. I can't share any more than what I've already shared. Yeah.
Governor, do you have any details on how he got back to Washington County and how the gun was obtained?
So how we obtained the gun? The gun was found here. So I don't have much more details on that. We do know that he drove. We had his car here on campus, and then we had his car going south back to the St. George. It's actually the city of Washington in Washington County. I'm sorry? We don't have any information that would lead us to believe that. Yes, in fact, it was just released. Yes. I can't answer that right now. Yeah, thank you. Over here. I absolutely believe that this is a watershed in American history. Yes. The question is, what kind of watershed? And that chapter remains to be written. Is this the end of a dark chapter in our history, or the beginning of a darker chapter in our history? Look, I mean, if you look at true political assassinations in this country of someone of this stature, this feels a lot like the late 60s, and having one so gruesomely displayed on camera in all of our hands and in all of our pockets. We are not wired as human beings biologically, historically. We have not evolved in a way that we are capable of processing those types of violent imagery. And by the way, we've seen another one with a gruesome stabbing very recently that went viral. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community. That is happening, and it's happening organically right now. I had a friend in a small city in Utah who said, we're getting together, the Republicans and Democrats in my little town are getting together to have a discussion last night, just to find a way to find their better angels. So yes, this could be, I mean, again, you have to go back to JFK to have seen a video live of something like this happening. I wasn't born until 1975, but I know that things were really dark in the late 60s. Sorry to some of you. I know some of you were there. But this is our moment. Do we escalate, or do we find an off-ramp? And again, it's a choice. It's a choice, and every one of us gets to make that choice. Two more questions right here.
Could we clarify that the release of those enhanced images at 8 p.m., the timeline that Director Patel gave us, led to the arrest at 10 p.m.? Is there a direct connection between those two events?
I cannot comment if there is a direct connection or not, but all I can say is that that through some process, the family came to know that this had happened.
One more thing, Governor. Could you just clarify the clothing issue you mentioned earlier? Was he changing outfits?
Correct. Yes. So when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU. Last question here. Yes. Yeah, so I don't have any information on the mental illness part. He was not a student here at UVU. He was living and had lived for a long time with his family in Washington County, in the southernmost part of our state. Thank you, everyone, for your great work in getting this information out. I will just say, process-wise, this may be important. I know many of you aren't familiar with the process in Utah. I think it's important that you understand that. Basically, we have 3 days for charging documents to be filed. A CI will be filed. We'll have more information then, more detailed information as those charging documents are filed in preparation for a preliminary hearing. So 3 days. So we would anticipate then that early next week those charging documents will be filed. We will obviously be working. The county attorney will be working very closely with Mr. Kirk's family as those documents and decisions are prepared and made. Thanks, everyone.
And as you've just heard, authorities have announced they do have a suspect in custody for the assassination of political activist Charlie Kirk on Wednesday. He's been identified as Tyler Robinson. He is 22 years old. He is a resident of Utah. Let's go to our justice correspondent, Scott McFarlane in Washington. Scott, there was a lot to unpack in that news conference, a lot of information just revealed to us. What stuck out to you?
Gail, a day-and-a-half manhunt that captured the world's attention ended, according to the investigators, when the defendant confessed to his father. And his father went to clergy, and they turned him in. This was a self-directed turn-in by the Robinson family, according to what the governor said there. 11,000 tips came in. All that video was released, and a couple key takeaways from what the governor said when he was answering questions about the video and about the case, that we do not have information that will lead to any more arrests. Not the most declarative statement I've ever heard, ruling out the possibility of more arrests or more people being considered culpable in this, but saying right now that this is the one person responsible for this murder. The inscriptions on the casings, and we heard about that, you'll recall, at the murder of the United Healthcare CEO in New York City. These inscriptions, according to the investigators, included the phrases "catch, fascist," and "Bella Ciao." Bella Ciao is a refrain, a motto of the Italian resistance against fascists during World War II. And also, Gail, it's noteworthy that the governor said, social media is a cancer. Get off social media. That had been an issue early in this investigation when the FBI director was on social media announcing people were in custody, when those people would later be released. Here is a more traditional way of releasing information to the public with all law enforcement together at a news conference.
He said that it had taken 33 hours. What do you make about the speed of the case? When you think about it, they released the video, they released the pictures, and after that, things really seemed to ramp up. I was surprised to hear that he'd actually been arrested at 10 o'clock last night. Did that surprise you?
The FBI director had alluded to the speed with which this investigation was concluded. And this has been faster than other cases, but there really is no traditional speed for these types of cases. And it's hard to characterize this was faster or slower than it should have been. The search, you'll recall, for Luigi Mangione in New York lasted 4 to 5 days. But this is a pretty strong indication that they think they've got their person and nobody else is a part of a network, or that there's still a public safety threat elsewhere in Utah or across America stemming from this man and this case.
Well, many people are breathing a sigh of relief that he is in custody. Thank you, Scott, so much. Let's turn now to senior White House correspondent Weijia Zhang and Anna Schechter, who's a CBS News senior coordinating producer for crime and public safety. Anna, you've been on the phone. You've got sources, too. What stands out to you? What are you hearing?
What jumped out at me is that they've already looked through the electronic communications between Tyler Robinson and his roommate at the time. In fact, law enforcement just told us that the roommate was told to go to that wooded area and recover the gun that was dropped there, that it was wrapped in a dark towel, all that detail. So those electronic communications, that's all part of a case that is being built right now, and we just heard that we'll see those charging documents early next week.
It was interesting, too, to hear that family members said that he had become more political recently.
That's right, more political, that he didn't like Charlie Kirk, and we see the message on those casings. I think that's very telling, and law enforcement right now is using that to point to a motive.
Weijia?
Well, Gail, during that press conference, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, did post, and he was careful to say that the investigation is ongoing, but he said this is a big breakthrough, and everyone who helped, from the law enforcement professionals to people giving tips, deserves our credit. He said in some ways the investigation is still in the early days. I point that out because he had such a close relationship to Charlie Kirk, and so did President Trump, along with so many other White House officials. So obviously, they were eager for this arrest, but for them and for President Trump and the vice president, this is extremely personal. And we heard from President Trump today, who actually broke the news to the world, that they had a suspect in custody. And he went on to say that he hopes he gets the death penalty. He says he's been in close contact with Kirk's family and that he plans to attend Kirk's funeral. So I think that is a layer that we cannot forget as we talk about this investigation, just what it means not only to our elected officials, but to their supporters and all the young people we've been interviewing who have never experienced something like this, and they're still trying to process.
Yeah, there were calls very early on for him to get the death penalty, which I think really says something about the family's decision to say, when they recognized him, to make sure that their son turned himself in.
And I think it's notable that the investigators and the governor talked about how in the days before Charlie Kirk visited Utah, that the suspect, Tyler Robinson, was mentioning at dinner, hey, Charlie Kirk is coming here. And that was very chilling to hear something so small that turned into something so grave.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the suspect and his back history. Well, let's turn now to CBS News national security contributor, that's Samantha Vinograd. She's in Washington. Samantha, the question for you, what would they be investigating now going forward? They seem to have a lot of information.
They sure do, Gail, and the FBI will be working through all of those leads with their state and local partners. But when we talk about the fact that the investigation is ongoing, what that means is that law enforcement professionals will be combing through this individual's history, including his social media, his communications with friends and family, and his movements. The immediate priority is to ensure that there is no ongoing threat to the public. That could entail reviewing whether this individual was in touch with like-minded individuals on Discord, on other social media channels. Was he seeking to inspire any other similar kinds of plots? So we're trying to ensure that there's no ongoing threat to the public. At the same time, investigators will want to understand the arc of radicalization and mobilization that led this individual to commit this heinous assassination. Part of that process is to try to understand if there were steps along the way that could have tipped off law enforcement, that could have prevented this horrible event, so that going forward, individuals will be more aware of what signs to look out for and how to prevent this going forward, Gil.
All right, Sam, thank you. Stand by for just a sec. Scott McFarland, let's go back to you because Sam made a very interesting point about an ongoing investigation. Do you have any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, law enforcement sources say there's a good probability, if not a likelihood, there will be both local and federal charges brought against Tyler Robinson. A bit of redundancy there in the legal system. The federal charges would begin with a criminal information, then likely a detention hearing or a preliminary hearing. You can bet the farm the government will seek detention in this case, considering the scope and size of the charges. But it's worth emphasizing that federal criminal proceedings are measured in months and years, not days and weeks. Federal criminal cases span years, and we heard the president already pre-butting that timeline, saying he likes to see faster trials, and that's going to cause some controversy in itself, that type of argument ahead of a criminal proceeding.
All right. Thank you very much, Scott. Now let's bring in Carter Evans, who was at the news conference. Carter, what questions are you hearing that are still left out there in Utah? I know so many people are so relieved that they have somebody in custody.
Right, and that's the primary thing here. But now as we look into how this all unfolded, you know, the main question I have right now is the involvement of other people and when they knew, specifically this Discord conversation with a friend. Did that friend inform law enforcement that this had happened, or did they interview this friend after he turned himself in? That's a big question I have right now. And I asked the governor if they expected any other arrests or if he acted alone. He said they believe he acted alone, but it is still under investigation, and that could change. So that is pretty interesting there. I also have another question, too. He mentioned that they have received to date 11,000 tips. That is just astronomical. A lot of information has come in. And I'm wondering, were they able to identify this individual, this suspect, before he turned himself in? Were they on his trail already? That is not clear at this point, if it was some of those tips that panned out or if it was simply his father bringing him into the U.S. Marshal's office. So we've still got a lot to clear up here, and we're going to learn a lot more next week. He said they've got 3 days to prepare the charging documents. So basically, that's going to put them into next week, where we hear a preliminary hearing. When we get those charging documents, we're going to be able to see a lot more about what they knew when they made this arrest.
I know, Carter, thank you. I was struck, too, by Governor Cox, his words to the young people to say we all have a choice now to make a different choice. We now have the option. Politics feels like rage. It doesn't have to be this way. Carter, we thank you. Scott, Anna, Weija, Sam, we thank all of you for joining us. Just to recap for you, if you're just tuning in, authorities have confirmed the arrest of a suspect in the assassination of political activist Charlie Kirk. The suspect has been named. He is 22 years old. His name is Tyler Robinson. He is a resident of Utah. He was not a student at the school, they tell us. Robinson's family and a friend were involved in persuading him to surrender. Our coverage will continue, of course, throughout the morning on our streaming channel, CBS News 24/7. There, of course, will also be more on your local news station. And tonight on the CBS Evening News, many of you will now return to CBS Mornings. This has been a special CBS Special Report. I'm Gayle King here in New York.
Here we go. Our special breaking news coverage continues right now here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Errol Barnett in New York. Moments ago, the FBI announced the gunman accused of assassinating activist Charlie Kirk is now in custody, and he's been identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, who was turned in part thanks to cooperation from his family. This morning's press update began a short time ago with remarks from Utah's Governor Spencer Cox.
We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon T-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes.
Now, we want to use our special VR technology to help spell out for you what investigators then explained happened next after Tyler Robinson arrived on campus in that clothing. Investigators believe that below me, where you see the distance, about 400 feet between where Tyler Robinson was believed to be on the rooftop and where Charlie Kirk was holding his event, convincing students to prove him wrong. Investigators said a few moments ago that it was up here on the rooftop of this building where Tyler Robinson then changed out of that plain maroon shirt and light-colored shorts into the black clothing that he was witnessed wearing. After firing the shot, he then crossed across the rooftop, which you see in this footage, with a bag, jumped down to the grassy area near the parking lot, and then proceeded to cross a road nearby and head into a wooded area. All of this suggesting prior thought, strategy, and planning before the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Investigators also say that people close to him, his friends and his family, had said that he had become more radicalized and political lately, and talked to them about Charlie Kirk coming to campus, and that in his opinion, in the opinions of this suspect, Charlie Kirk was full of hate. So that footage was recorded just to my left. CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us from Washington with more on how we're now getting a fuller picture, Scott, of the intent of this individual, how he was able to pull this off. But investigators also said they do not believe there are any other suspects or people of interest at this time. What jumped out to you?
Yeah, the governor described this as somebody who had become radicalized or politicized in recent weeks or recent months, and that the family was noticing that, but that it also was the family that got the confession from Tyler Robinson, brought it to clergy, brought it to law enforcement, and ultimately resulted in Tyler Robinson being arrested and jailed in Washington County, Utah. Washington County, Utah, roughly 3 or 4 hours away from Utah Valley University. Tyler Robinson now is being held as a local inmate, but federal charges are imminent. If not today, I'd expect charging documents, criminal information filed over the weekend, Monday morning at the latest. And there'll be a procedure for Tyler Robinson to make a preliminary appearance in court, potentially in both local court and federal court. 2 different cases are brought. And what the governor described is just this series of granular pieces of evidence that would likely be presented to a judge at a detention hearing. The inscriptions, the engravings on the bullet casings, including the words "catch fascist" and "Bella Ciao," a message famous in Italy during World War II, during their fight against the Nazis. The 11,000 tips brought in by the feds may include something specific for prosecutors to use, but they have this information about the firearm because they have the firearm, this unique rifle with a scope on top, the bullet casings being distinguishing. And Errol, I think it's worth a conversation that these bullet casing engravings, these inscriptions, they are becoming a potential source of copycats. We've seen them in other cases in recent months, and there's fears we see them again in future shootings.
Well, the governor and other officials from the FBI spoke about a heightened sense of fear in the United States because of what seemed to be ongoing acts of political violence against people on the right and the left. How important will it be in the investigation into this that investigators are careful of what to release and also to tamp down the pressure of political rhetoric in the U.S. in the days ahead?
The governor spent a lot of his time, even before taking questions at the news conference this hour, trying to do just that with an extended message of we have a pivotal moment now, a potential off-ramp, or we continue down this road of increased political toxicity, increased political violence, and increased death. He used the phrase, social media is a cancer. He emphasized those words, that social media is spinning up so much of this hatred and that there may be foreign players involved ginning up Americans through social media channels, which is a bit of a contradiction, though, in this case, because federal law enforcement, the FBI director himself, was using social media as the singular platform to provide updates on this case prior to last night. So there's a contradiction there in what social media should be doing with cases like this. But the FBI director, you heard from him today at the news conference, he credited law enforcement with being expedient in this case, moving, in his words, I think, record time, he said. A 33-hour manhunt is not shorter or longer than any other previous manhunts, but it did result in an arrest in a case that captured the attention of the world.
An important time, especially when you consider how much misinformation was available online as it relates to this horrific incident, to be diligent, be extremely diligent with what you consume and share. Scott MacFarlane in our D.C. Bureau, thank you very much. We want to share with you the first person to break this news, President Trump, this morning at approximately 8 a.m. Eastern as he was appearing on Fox and Friends.
With a high degree of certainty, we have him. In custody, right? In custody. Everyone did a great job. We worked with the local police, the governor. Everybody did a great job.
CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand is at the White House. Natalie, as we've been speaking this morning, you've noted that the president gave as much detail as he could while appearing on that program and was also the first person to release information that Charlie Kirk had, in fact, died. What stood out to you from the president's remarks and actions this morning?
Yeah, Errol, it speaks to the investment, the personal investment